You are listening to Eastmans Fly Cast, an adventure fly fishing specific podcast covering travel, tactics, and next level insight. Now your host, Brian Barney.
Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to another episode of Eastmans Fly Cast. This week I have on Zach Boughton from Montana Wild. Such a fan of this Montana Wild. The films that Zach puts out are just absolutely awesome. They get me so pumped to go fishing. So he's got some good ones out there. Make sure to check that out. Their newest releases are a hunting film called The Outlier, and it's about hunting elk in Montana. It's got another one of my good buddies on there, Brandon Purcell. I watched the bloopers roll. It's just hilarious. Had those guys joking around and making laughs the whole time. I watched it a couple times. Just made me laugh. But yeah, just great films. Make sure to go check them out and check out all the content that he produces. Zach he also has the Hunting Collective. It's a photography course. He's got the Montana Wild guy loves to fish and hunt. It's just a great conversation today. We get talking about fishing salmon flies, and we get talking about the technical side of fly fishing and also the attitude needed. But it's just a great back and forth. I really enjoyed it. So we'll get right into it. Make sure to check out the other podcast, Eastman's Elevated. Eastman's Elevated is a hunting-specific podcast, and this week I have on Josh Kirchner. Josh Kirchner is fairly new to backpack bow hunting, and so he's got this great perspective on backcountry bow hunting that he brings in. So we had this great in-depth conversation. It's a great episode. Make sure to check that out over at Eastman's Elevated, and check everything else we have going on over there at Eastman's. We have the magazines, the films. In fact, I just had a new film drop on Beyond the Grid, which is our internet TV show. You can find it on YouTube by searching Beyond the Grid. But they released my 2016 high country mule deer hunt in Wyoming. So this is the first hunt that I really committed to filming. Had a great cameraman, and Lane Walters filmed it for me and put this thing together. So it's something I'm really proud of. And they just released it to the internet, and so you can find that now and watch that. And with that, fly fishing's been good lately. Man, I've been so busy with construction and these Western hunting summits, the podcast. It's just tough to find time in the summertime, but I am finding some time to be on the river. Got it good last week, like 3 or 4 evenings I went out, caught the last little bit of the salmon fly hatch on my river. In fact, they might still be hatching around, but yeah, I got it really good up in the top water, up around $3, and then up between the lakes up there. Caught my best brown on the Madison this year, and got some good eats on the surface. So that was really fun. I also got to fish it with my buddy Dylan Ness. I've got another podcast coming up with Dylan. The guy's just a wizard with a fly rod in his hand, so it's another great conversation on there as I think we had just gone fishing the night before and then getting ready to go fishing that day. So we're pretty pumped up and ready to go catch some. And we did hit it right that second day and got some good fish. So super fun. I'm really enjoying this podcast, you guys. Thanks for all the support. Let's get into this thing. So great conversation. I've got Zach Boughton. This is Eastman's Fly Cast, and I'm your host, Brian Barney. Here we go. Dude, thanks a bunch for coming on.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, first off, what I can promote for you that what is it, the photo that's with Steve, right?
Yeah, it's just called The Hunting Photographer. We basically built a whole online course that kind of top to bottom takes you through everything you need to know really to become a hunting photographer and make a living doing it. So it's been about a year now, so it's been good.
Oh, good for you guys. Yeah, what a great resource for guys that there's just not really a laid path for guys. So for you to be a resource that they can, get information on how to make contacts or how to make a name, being a photographer, man, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's been super rewarding, that's for sure.
I'm just scratching this down here before we get started. And then also your videos, dude, I love the Montana Wild videos. I don't think I've seen one come across Instagram that I haven't watched. You do such a good job with those things.
Nice, man. Yeah, thanks. I wish we had more new ones. I neither myself or Travis have really spent a lot of time on the business in the last couple of years, but yeah, I mean, a lot of our old content's still as relevant and great quality, so I'm glad you like it.
Oh, it holds up. Well, and guys like me just discovering it now, which is wild. But yeah, it's so
Yeah.
cool. So you're still running Montana Wild?
Yeah, my brother, he got married and kind of just, life takes you in different directions is probably the easiest way to put it. And so he just wasn't as avid about necessarily staying in the hunting industry and doing the media stuff. And that was kind of what I was doing and wanting to do. And so, we owned it 50-50 and just kind of didn't see eye to eye. I've always kind of been the one to lead it and push forward a little bit. And so I guess you kind of can only do that so long until there's differences in motivation and stuff that kind of make it a little bit tough. They say don't run business with a family. I'd say don't run business with any other partner if you can't, I mean, because it's hard for people to see eye to eye. So I ended up just doing more freelance stuff, and he started doing some like construction and siding and has a couple rentals now and stuff like that. So it's good. But yeah, I own Montana Wild outright right now, and I'll probably try to make a film this fall with Brandon. I think you've spent a little time with Brandon Purcell on a bear hunt or talked to him in the past, it sounds like. But yeah, I don't know what Montana Wild's future really holds at this point, but I'm kind of keeping it up and running, and obviously it's super part-time, but
Yeah, good for you. It's tough to have time for all these different properties or ideas, but that Montana Wild one is a worthwhile one. Man, so it's really cool that you got full ownership and now can move forward. And yeah, that Brandon Purcell, that guy's a character. That guy's so fun. Yeah, I've bear hunted with him, hung out with him a time or two, and then just keep in contact with him. But yeah, he's a riot. I think I was just looking up on Instagram to look. That was the way we messaged back and forth, and so I was looking up on there, and I saw a picture pop up of a bear paw. And Brandon, you weren't in on that this morning, huh?
no, I had to work this morning, so, but yeah, I think he was just out at his parents' have some property, and his dad had killed a bear out there, and I don't know, he hasn't texted me or nothing. I haven't gotten the story, but it looked like he killed a bear out on their property or something, just out there.
Okay, yeah, I just saw that come across too. Yeah.
He's wearing shorts. I don't think he's even like really hunting, but good for him. We're going to Idaho in 2 weekends to hunt bears, and I have a wolf tag, so.
Right on. I love that Idaho side. Yeah, those inexpensive tags too. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been after them hard in Montana this year, huh?
I've hunted, I think, about 6 days for myself now. I've been on a couple kills for Stone Glacier stuff that I was shooting, and so I've probably been out almost 2 weeks, I bet. But yeah, I've hunted about, I don't know, a handful of days. I'm gonna go this weekend. I think there's a couple spots I might go check out in the Gravelies. It's just a little closer to home. We've been hunting western Montana so far this year, so.
Yep, I like both those places. Yeah, definitely Madison Valley is greening up. It's as good as it gets for sure. For as far as well, actually, I kind of like it when it greens up early, like early, but it's not green in the timber yet. It puts those bears in those meadows. It seems like now this last weekend I went out with a buddy, and we did find one, got a good stock on it, got close, but it just seems like I'm not seeing as many now just because they can be in that timber more. But it's still good hunting, and it's prime time right now.
Yeah, it gets really tough when it gets green in the timber, and yeah, it's still worth getting out. And I have a couple spots I just kind of want to go put boots on the ground anyway. So if I see a bear, great. If not, it'll still be worthwhile.
Oh, I like the grabs too. Every time I go out to western Montana, I'm just covered in ticks and things. And the gravelies is nice. It's like higher elevation. Like we just don't get an influx of them. Like we find a few on us or whatever. It's not like you never find any. But I think it's that higher elevation around that 6, 7, 8,000 feet in elevation. I don't think there's as many ticks around.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some elevation where they can't live above, and I don't know if it's that that low. But yeah, fortunately, they weren't too bad in the places we hunted in western Montana. But some of the Bitterroot stuff around Missoula and on that border can be pretty bad.
God, stuff's gnarly in there, isn't it?
Yeah, you live in Ennis, right?
I do. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Heck yeah, it's a good spot.
Yeah, oh man, it is a great spot to be. Just so much to enjoy as far as, bear hunting, elk hunting, fishing,
Yeah.
low populations. It's far enough away from Bozeman. Like, it's just a great little small community to be part of. I've got two girls, and the schooling is really good around too. We get a lot of our tax revenue from Big Sky. So, yeah, it's just a great little community, man. I love it here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. Where are you located at?
I live here in Bozeman.
Okay. Are you full time for Stone Glacier, or how is that? Do you sub out a lot for your photo work for him?
I did some freelance independent contractor work for him last year, kind of working basically kind of towards this role, and I did a bunch of work for Sitka as well. But yeah, I started full time with them in January, but I had been just full freelance before that, and Montana Wild and all that other stuff. So I was self-employed for I don't know, let's see, about 7 years. Um, and I like it, which I still have my businesses on the side, so I can always go back to it. But it was just a really unique opportunity with Stone Glacier, and I know all the guys, and I'm friends with them, and I think they make an awesome product. So kind of just jumped on it, and it's been really good so far.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, what a great up and coming company or established company at this point. Now with their packs. But yeah, all their gear is just produced at the highest quality. Most performance, and yeah, what a great team of guys. So good for you. You work for a long time to make those relationships, and then it comes through where you got a job like that or a chance at a job like that. So yeah, good on you.
Yeah, it's been good. It's just been cool to. I've known their packs have been great, but it's been cool this spring just to really beat up the apparel stuff, and it's held up. And I figured it would, but you know how it goes until you've really used it. Sometimes, theory and what reality is can be different, but it's held up and done super well. So I'm excited for guys to use it this fall, and I think it's just going to keep growing and blowing up. So
I think so too. Yeah, you guys are definitely growing. Yeah, I got to see some of it hanging out with Logan. He did a couple film projects with me, and he was using their gear, and yeah, it looked like it held up really well. Lightweight too, which I really like. It's tough to get. When the hunting industry started making technical mountaineering gear, it was always a little heavier and wasn't quite as good. And since these companies have evolved it and pushed that, and Stone Glacier is definitely part of that.
yeah, it's good stuff, man. I've really no complaints, and uh, definitely gonna be coming out with new stuff. It's a pretty long lead time on apparel and like changes and stuff. So some of that's a little frustrating. She's like, we should make this, and it's like, yeah, in 2 years. Especially if you want to test it and go through materials and use your own, designs, not just knock off someone else's. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's like Sitka too. You have ideas and they're 2, 3 years out just in development and testing, and so yeah, that's got to be a little frustrating when you need a piece of gear, you need something that'll work, or you have buddies that ask you about it and you can't even talk about it or say, yeah, we got a really good product coming up. It's 2022 or whatever.
Yeah, as far as future podcast guests, if you can get Kurt Roscoe, our founder, on, I mean, it's pretty insane when you listen to Kurt talk. I mean, obviously he's an amazing hunter, and that's what spawned Stone Glacier. But just to hear his design philosophies and why he does everything, it's so calculated, and his reasons are just outstanding for what he does. That sometimes like, why'd you do it like this? And he's just like, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, oh, like that makes perfect sense. Like, that's awesome. So.
Man, there's levels to this game, isn't there? And some guys just operate at that higher level. At least it sounds like Kurt does. I haven't had a chance to meet him or sit down with him, but yeah, I gotta get him on the Eastman's Elevated podcast. That'd be an awesome conversation.
Yeah, he's a solid dude. I mean, it's just really that's another like unique thing about Stone Glaciers. We're all hunters, but Kurt is our designer and the founder, and he's just a savage when it comes to hunting, and he's a great designer. So we feel pretty blessed to have him.
Man, how cool to just have the leadership that believes in the product too. Like just the mission statement alone of Stone Glacier, just trying to design the best stuff out there. Like that's the company that you want to work for.
For sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, right on. We should get right into it, Zach. Anything else I can promote for you?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. Well, again, I really appreciate your time and taking time and being on. So I've got Zach Boughton on. Nice to meet you, Zach. Like we run in the same circles at least a couple of our buddies, and then you're up in Bozeman up there at Stone Glacier, and I found you through the Montana Wild videos, which I'm just in love with. But thanks a bunch, man, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. Yeah, it's a small community, but for the guys that are out hunting a lot, it seems like being able to link up in those social circles can be pretty rare.
Yeah, it does. You kind of do. You run in your own circles and do your own deal and kind of enjoy things, but a lot of times we don't intermingle or get to meet each other. But yeah, I thought it was a good chance to reach out. Man, I've just been digging on all those Montana Wild films. You work so hard there, getting the most out of Montana. I mean, still do. Man, fishing so many killer rivers and putting together those films. Well, you're actually partnered with Steve Drake, right? And your guys' the hunting photographer, is that right? Or what is that, Zach?
Yeah, well, so Montana Wild was just kind of a media business I ran with my brother Travis for about 7 years, and I still own the business and am maintaining it at the moment. So that's where all the film content that you're seeing is coming from. And then, through that process of being a content creator and working with brands, a big question we always got was like, how do you do it? Like, I want to get into it. I want to do what you guys do. And so for, I don't know, the last 3-4 years, we kind of had this idea of wanting to share some of that knowledge. And we had, some interns, some younger guys that, we worked with and just saw them really, crush after they spent some time with us, like Sam Averett and Calvin Connor and Keith Ailes and a few other guys that are now in the industry just crushing. And so, I was freelancing doing more of my own thing, and I wanted to basically make this photography school. And so I partnered up with Stephen Drake, who's a buddy of mine and probably one of the best hunting photographers in the industry. And we built out an entire online course. Anyone can take it. Just got to get on your phone or your computer, and there's 5 modules that pretty much take you through everything you need to know to start hunting photography, or really any photography business, and do it successfully. So, I think we've ran about 30 some students through the program, and we've just had a great response. Just changed some people's lives in some pretty big ways. And then obviously there's some mentorship time that goes with it, and just get to talk people through what they're doing and help them out. And so that's been really cool. So those are kind of a couple things that you mentioned. And then I work full time at Stone Glacier right now. So
got a bunch of irons and a bunch of fires, Zach.
I know I got so many things on my plate, and I just bought a house in Bozeman, and then I'm trying to, be skilled with my rifle. You get a new gun, and then I got to start shooting my bow, and then I got to perform in the field outside of work and manage relationships with friends and family and a girlfriend. And so, yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah. It seems like we always want more hunting and fishing time, but I'm the same way. I just keep taking on more projects, but I figure I'm young and they're passion projects and things that I enjoy doing and like doing. So it's almost like I've just got to be more efficient with my time. I've got to wake up earlier and get things done, or you work in the evening a little bit, so then tomorrow when I've got time off, I can go hit the water.
For sure. Yeah, I was up this morning at 4:45 and loaded my stuff up and drove out and shot my rifle before work. I had went on a hunt with Brandon bear hunting in the rain, and I'd somehow, I mean, I've had Vortex rifle scopes for the longest time and they've been bomb proof, but the one I had somehow had a leak, and so it got condensation in the back of it, and so I've been resighting in my gun, which isn't the most fun. But like you said, trying to be efficient with your time, just getting up early and doing stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, good for you. It's calm in the morning too, and it's you can have the best luck with gear, but there's so many moving parts in it, and Montana and then us anglers and us hunters are pretty tough on gear. So yeah, I can see that for sure. But yeah, not the optimum time to be shooting your rifle during bear season, but that thing's got to be dialed for that last couple weeks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling good. That's the nice thing about fishing is there's really nothing to dial in. You just need the gear and flies and you go. There's no like, oh, my rod's not sighted in, like it's just like that is the one thing that's awesome about fishing is you can just grab your stuff and go.
Oh man, you can have such an adventure in a day, can't you? You just you make a couple phone calls the night before, line up a couple buddies to go with or a buddy to go with, and then you're just off and exploring Montana or Idaho or Wyoming, Oregon, wherever it is. There's just a bunch of cool western rivers where you can go have this experience, and you don't need a whole week to go explore. It seems like just a free day and a couple phone calls, and you're out on the water and doing it. Which we're coming into the good season right now. It's going to be fun. I fished the salmon flies down on the Henry's Fork down there. Boy, that's a fun river. I need to spend more time down there. And then man, I'm sure they're showing up on the Big Hole in the Lower Madison. I just like you, I'm busy setting trusses right now and trying to get everything done so I can get out there.
Yeah, I went down for a day and fished the Henry's Fork, I think 2 weekends ago, trying to hit the salmon fly hatch, and that cold weather put them off. We caught a few on it, but they were definitely not out in very many numbers. It was just warming up the evening that we fished, and we actually saw a few when we were taking out. So I'm sure it got good as soon as we left, which is super characteristic of the salmon fly hatch. Like when it's on, it's so awesome, but it's such a rarity. I swear it's like 1 out of 20 days you hit perfect. And I've just told myself like, just go planning to like nymph, big rubber legs, and throw streamers. And if the salmon flies are out, it's like a bonus.
Yeah,
Because you go expecting like, oh, I'm gonna throw the big bug all day. They're gonna be plowing it, and they don't, and then you're super bummed out.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's a finicky hatch in that. Gosh dang, that Henry's Fork is a finicky river too. That hatch doesn't hang around or stay around as much down on that river as it does like on the Madison, where it's around for 3 or 4 weeks, and you can just plan on getting into them. But definitely those early, you're trying to get that first pulse of bugs coming through. Those are when those biggest fish eat, and so you're trying to time it right. And you're right, you end up striking out a lot throwing that big bug. But it is absolute magic when you get it. It's got to be so tough to capture a video. Like, I think of you as I'm out there fishing, like not only capturing it, but you've got to have an extra guy that doesn't fish that films a lot of those takes and a lot of those fights. Man, it's got to be tough to find a cameraman that's willing to not fish.
Yeah, we had it pretty good because Travis and I were so dialed into the program that, we just alternate. I film a day and you fish, and then vice versa. Because early on, making fishing films, you learn pretty quick, like you can't do both very well. So you kind of have to just be like, all right, like you fish today, I'll film, and vice versa. And so, yeah, the salmon fly hatch was always one we like to film because it's super easy to film, as well, not super easy, but easier. When you're throwing a huge dry fly, it's a lot easier to track with the camera than like a size 16 whatever. So
Yeah, and then what are you rowing and trying to film then?
I mean, usually it's just like a 3-man deal. So there's a guy in the back of the boat filming the guy rowing and the guy fishing up front. And we actually had worked with a couple interns on a few of those salmon fly films where, we kind of worked through the process with them, filmed a little bit, had them film. But yeah, it all kind of started out, our first one was Bareback Rider, where I went and filmed with Dan Levins with Rooster from Twin Bridges, and we fished the Madison. And I don't know, man, it wasn't that long ago. It might have been 5 years ago now or 6 years ago. And like, there was one other boat. We saw one other boat that entire day. I don't know how. And the fishing was lights out. And I mean, I've fished the Madison pretty repeatedly since then. Maybe we ruined it. I mean, it's never been a secret, but I feel like it's just been crazy busy, especially the last 3 years. It's just a boat parade. But
man, it is.
yeah, I think we just got it just was one of those days, I think, where like people just couldn't make it. They had to work or whatever, and we just had the river to ourselves. But man, when you get it like that, it's sweet.
Yeah, that's what's nice about being a local, is it's such a great river and it fishes so good. But you're right, the boat parade there's no limitations on guides, and so there's a lot of guide boats that make their daily wages going down that river, which you just like you say, you get those local days, and then you got to be good at beating the pressure. And this is all rivers really, is just really smart with your plan, your put in and your takeout, and not that you want to low hole guys, but there's a lot of guys that are putting in for an 8-hour guide day, and so they'll do Lions down to Mac, and so you can jump in the halfway point there and kind of get in front of them, or you put in up at Lions at 10 or 11 o'clock, and it seems like that salmon fly hatch about 10, 11 o'clock is when those bugs really hatch out. And so there's all these different schools of thought and all this strategy that goes into it, and I don't know if any of it really matters. It seems like when you get into the hatch, you just catch them, and if you're not, then you got to kind of fight for some fish, here and there. But there is a whole strategy to it. Those bugs seem to come off 10 to 11, something like that first hatch. And then you also have, the morning, if you're the first boat on that early morning, even though there's not a bunch of bugs around, those fish have seen it. And so you're the first bug down through, and so you can do really good doing that. And then, my favorite is like the evening drift. Since I am a local guy, I can work all day long and then put in phone calls to buddies, and I can also get some pretty good intel on the river, and then be putting in at 5 o'clock and pulling out at 10 o'clock and getting that evening drip, which is just like the best fishing for those bugs, I feel like.
Yeah, I've kind of done it all.
Does any of it
early
work?
Morning thing, super hit or miss, but if it's good, it's good. I mean, you better like be there in the dark on the Madison, because man, there's been a few days where we're like, oh, we're the first boat here, like sun's just coming up, and then like 3 guide boats pulling in, and then you're just all like, I mean, if you're out front, you're going to catch a fish, and then if it's a good one, you're fighting it and you're pulling over to net it, and if you take a photo or not, whatever, but and then someone passes you, and then it's just, ooh, it's great.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to fish it. I mean, I think that like always will happen is that even, there's a lot of anglers out there and they're not all very skilled. So if you can precisely put your fly in areas other people can't, like the fish know that, and they'll hide in those spots, so you can always catch fish. And then, I don't know, sometimes I think it might be in my head, but I think the pattern, I've tied my own flies, at least for like big stone flies, Goldens and salmon flies. And I feel like I've found a pattern that seems to work super well. I mean, definitely went fishing with buddies who are fishing other stuff, and it's outfished it. But like I said, it could be in my head, and who knows. But
yeah, there's so much that goes into it, catching a fish, and then so much bro science too. What works for one guy doesn't work for another. But you're right, like how you mentioned putting that bug in those technical spots in there. It takes 10,000 hours to get that good with a fly rod, to stick it in that spot, and then get that mend or to read that current right, to get that drift down through there where it doesn't drag and does what it's supposed to. And the fish just know. You're right. Those technical spots back in those root wads or back off those grass cut banks that are really tough to get your bug just inches away. And those browns are sitting under there and they crush that thing. So you can always catch fish. And I almost do better when I kind of come up with my game plan. And then you just get out on the water and go have fun, and you always seem to find a few fish, no matter where you are or what you're trying. It may not be on the big dry fly, and maybe you didn't catch 20 or 30 of them or catch a 2-footer, but it seems like you can always find a few fish in the river.
Definitely. Yeah. I guided part-time the last couple summers, so I spent some time on the Madison and Big Hole and Jefferson and stuff. And like, I mean, a lot of the times I would just fish where, like, if when you're guiding, you're definitely not the first boat on the river. And so a lot of times I would just be like, where are the not obvious spots? And sometimes you can do super well. I mean, just fish in areas that don't look the best, or, even the middle of the river, sometimes you can do super well. It's hard to define where the fish might be, but
yeah, it
they
is.
definitely can do really well. And then, like, something that I'm a huge believer in is just giving that bug a little bit of action, just that ever so subtle twitch where those legs are moving, like it's kicking in the water. And man, caught a lot of fish doing that.
Yeah, giving that bug a little twitch or a little movement, and then also just leaving it in the water too. Guys get caught up in recasting, and everybody has their different style or the way they like to see that bug. Some people like to recast it right back into the bank, right back in, but there's almost like a flow to that river where there's these runs where these fish sit, where there's this slack water, and there's a head of it, and then there's a tail of it, and then it starts into another run, and maybe it goes around rocks, maybe it deepens up, maybe it's not that good of a run, but there's all these little runs on the edge, and sometimes it's out off the shelf, out off the drop off, maybe on the current line, but it seems like your ability to read those and stick your fly in the head of that run, fish it all the way through, mending it and getting it to fish and letting those fish see it. And then it's time to recast after you make it through the tail out, right in the head of the next one. But there's something about reading that water as you're going down through where if you get in flow state and you're sticking that thing everywhere it needs to be, man, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. One thing that people just don't necessarily do super well, at least out of a boat, is I mean, if you can fish in front of the boat with a reach cast, you can run that bug tight to the bank for a long time, especially without drag. And even, the nice thing about salmon flies is if it drags a little bit, or you can, kind of pick your line and it, it's not going to sink under. So you can really run some long drifts. So yeah, I mean, if I'm in the zone, I'm letting it sit in there. Obviously I'm picking up and slapping it in to good looking water, but man, try to have some vision if you're floating down ahead of what's coming up. Some people will be so concerned on that drift, and they don't see like this crazy prime water coming up, and then they miss it, or they try to rush a cast and they slop it in there, and it's like try to keep looking downriver. If you're wade fishing, it really shouldn't be an issue of feeling rushed, but sometimes out of the boat you can not pay attention, and then you get sloppy, and then you miss a spot, and then like one bad thing leads to another.
Yeah, until you spend a lot of time in a drift boat. Yeah, you're exactly right. That angle to the bank is super important, and just like you say, paying attention as you're going down through. It could be the best run that you're waiting all day to fish this run, and for some reason, the guy in the front's focused on what's right in front of him or what's right into the bank, and he's almost casting back at it, and then he's rushed to get it into the good spot or doesn't get a good drift in there and misses that whole deal. So, yeah, it comes with time and fishing a bunch, but those instincts are just so important as you're going down throwing that thing. And you talked about your bug too. I think you're onto something, Zach. I think when you're running your personal tie, it's just something those fish never see. And then I also, depending on what the bugs are doing, I'll run a flutter bug or I'll run like a low sitting, just tight wing, and I'll trim it real tight bug. And just depending on what they're doing. If they're flying all over, then I'll use the flutter bug and I'll take some wings out and I'll maybe even break a wing, and it's just this huge profile in the water with moving wings and things, and they seem to just crush it. But if I'm making a morning float and there's not a bunch of bugs out, then I'll throw that more subtle one, and they seem to eat that. So I think you're onto something. I think there is definitely something with the pattern and what those fish like to eat.
Yeah, and it's cool because you get to build it the way you want to build it. And I mean, there are certain flies that you can go buy from a shop and they definitely work. But when you have a bug that big, there's a lot of material for them to look at. And I mean, I don't, if, there are a lot of fly shops that carry the same 5, 6 patterns. That you definitely can find some different ones out there, but you really have to look around. But yeah, I mean, as far as dry flies, the salmon fly is about as easy as it gets to tie. And I tie mine, based off some other smaller stonefly patterns that I just sized up, and then tons of foam, big white indicator. I can really twitch it, and it just fits my style of fishing. So as soon as I tie it on and slap it in there, like, I'm just feeling like I'm going to get an eat. So.
And there's something, we look at these flies and we try to dissect them and figure out which ones are going to work, but those trout brains are about as big as a pea. They just hit on instincts, but there's just something to a pattern that works. And once it works, it builds confidence in it, and then you just know you're going to catch fish. And I bet you, with your salmon fly, take you out salmon fly fishing, there's not another pattern you're going to tie on but that one that you've proven. You've sized it up, you've proven it, you've caught a bunch of fish off it, you've seen it outfish a lot of your buddies' flies. There's no way anybody's talking you into tying on another fly during the salmon fly hatch.
No, I mean, that's definitely gonna be my go-to. If someone's out fishing me, I'm happy to switch. I'm not like too prideful to say, okay, your bug's working better, but and every day is different too. It's just kind of like streamer fishing, but there's definitely those bugs you build that confidence with, and if you're confident, you're probably more focused, and you're probably making better casts, and you're putting your bug in better spots. And I think a lot of, depending on the speed of the water, a lot of the eats are profile, and then that movement, that action, that I feel like it's kind of like streamer fishing. You just need that one little thing that catches their eye that just makes them just like want to attack. Like they don't usually come up and inspect it and like look at it. They're usually coming up and hitting it pretty hard if they're going to eat it.
Definitely taps into those predatory instincts. This trout, they are just predators. They just crush those bugs. Well, they just have to put on so much weight in the summertime and take advantage of hatches like that salmon fly hatch. I mean, that's when they can really get a bunch of protein and pack on a bunch of weight. So they're definitely looking to eat it. So you think it's that one twitch or that one look or that one deal that gets them to come up and eat it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If it's really fast water, you probably aren't wanting to twitch it because their window of time to make a decision is a lot shorter, and you're going to see more misses if you're twitching it in fast water, 'cause, their just accuracy is going to be diminished. But you start getting like in under, bushes and slower water eddies, where they have more time to inspect it, or they're seeing more stuff, and, that's kind of where I like to move it. But it's just a feel thing. I mean, fishing is definitely a lot of feel regardless. So some days it works better than others, and it's kind of like streamer fishing. Some days it's a fast strip, some days it's slow, some days it's swinging it, some days it's upriver, downriver. You kind of just gotta feel it out, have a few different tricks in the toolbox, and just go fishing. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've always been a proponent of, I just want to go have a good time out on the water, and it's never been a numbers or size thing. Obviously I want to catch fish, but if you can't have a good day out there only catching a few fish, then man, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong, aren't you? It's just
I think the hatch, at least if we're talking about the Madison, I mean, some days you don't really catch that many fish, but the ones that you do might be really big, and I'm always like, hey, if I catch one good fish, I'm happy type of deal. So
that's me. Makes my whole day. Catch one good fish. Yep, I'm set. And you're right. It is, you can't get too stressed out. It seems like once you figure out fly fishing and you get them good and you get them good off salmon flies and you catch big fish, you're so amped for that season to come around. Like there's almost an added pressure to it that you really want to get on them and find that fish. But you're right. It's just like we're so lucky to be able to go out and experience Montana out of a drift boat or wade fishing or have a day on the river like that. You just got to have fun and joke around with your buddies. And good moods catch fish, like good attitudes catch fish, and sure you're paying attention to the patterns as you're out there, like you talked about streamers and the slow strip or the fast strip or in front of the rock or behind it or they're down in the tail out. You're always trying to figure out these patterns with whatever you're fishing, whether it's nymphs, streamers, dry flies, but at the same time you just got to laugh. You got to give your buddy hell in the front of the boat. You got to make jokes. You got to just have a good time. Like that's what it's absolutely all about, is just enjoying it.
Yeah, you gotta look up once in a while too. I mean, I'm a big proponent of just pulling over if you haven't pulled over in 20 or 30 minutes, just pull over, just sit down, talk to your buddies or just chill out for a few minutes, because like, man, they can fly by and be like, I didn't even look up once. And I just have seen too many people get upset when the fishing's not good or someone's out fishing them and their only focus is catching fish, catching fish. It's like, yeah, we're out here to fish. We're going to try to catch fish, but there's more to it. And I think guiding, even though I guided part-time, it was just cool because I didn't get burned out. I only did maybe 20, 25 days. But I just got to see a lot of other people's perspective because I wasn't doing it all the time where like, they're like, man, this is awesome. Like Montana's sick. Like just the views and, you kind of step back and just remember that, this is our normal, but it's pretty impressive still. So just got to try to remember to appreciate it once in a while.
Oh, that's the truth. I like your rule of pulling over every 20, 30 minutes. And, not only do you take in the experience, you get to joke around with your buddies, you get some snacks out or whatever, or maybe you're bank fishing or fishing out of the boat a little bit, but yeah, you just take it in better. And also, if you're not catching anything in 20, 30 minutes, like you stop fishing as hard, you stop looking for them, like you kind of get out of the zone. So yeah, I think whether you're catching them or not catching them, I just like that rule of pulling over and soaking it all in. It's so fortunate to go see it, and I like what you said about your clients, like the perspective. They come out here and they're coming from the big city and they get to come to Montana and do, go fly fishing down, an unbelievable river, and they come down and that's the experience of a lifetime for them. They get, and there's no prettier way to see the Madison Valley or the mountains around or surrounding areas or the wildlife around the river. There's so many cool things to see there. And you're right, we almost get used to it or take it for granted. And I try really hard, just like it sounds like you do, to really take it in and enjoy it when I'm out there, because it is just I don't think you can have more fun in a day in Montana than fly fishing a river like that. It's just such a riot.
Yeah, it's just inevitable. It's just like hunting. It's inevitable. There's going to be days where, it doesn't matter what your skill level is. Like the fishing is just not going to be that great. So
Yeah.
if you have something else to look forward to and enjoy about going fishing, then like that's just going to make it even better. And it's going to make the good days of fishing that much better because you're just enjoying the whole experience of being out there. So,
well, like you
which
stated,
is easier said than done, but that's how you do it.
it is easier said than done. Well, just like you said with the salmon flies, sometimes it takes 20 days to find that one good day. Does that mean you had 19 miserable days out on the water? Like, that's no way to live your life. You better enjoy every day out there. And then when you get that epic day, you soak it in even more. But that is so fun when you hit it right. And it seems like fishing, it is, you talked about like going out, planning to nymph or streamer fish for the day, and then you run into a dry fly hatch. A lot of it, fishing is just experience and just time on the water, and you don't kill them every day you go out. You don't catch a giant one every day you go out. Like that's the highlight reel.
Yeah.
You got to pay your dues. And really good fishermen, they just have grit, and they're just out day after day. You know, they get an evening, they're fishing, a free day, they're fishing. It's just getting out there. And then that skill and that knowledge just comes from being out there, and also having all those rod. You know, I like to have every rod tied up for dry flies, streamers, whatever it is. So then when I'm out on the water for a day, I can really take advantage if I see a good hatch coming off, or or I tap into a pattern where it's like, man, they're really eating green and white today. Like, this is really fun. And I never would have known that if I just had one rod or one rig tied up, or I was so set in my ways that I'm throwing a dry fly all day. I wouldn't get to experience that great fishing or take advantage of what that river's offering to me. And so I think just having all your gear tied up and just getting out on the water a bunch, like, that's how you become a really good fisherman.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something to be said too about like get on the water before you even rig up. I don't know how many times you pull up to the boat launch and you want to, at least if you're floating and you want to rig up, it's like a lot of the times just like put the boat in and like go sit on the river in the boat, at least when you're rigging up, because half the time you'll see something flying around, or like get a little better sense of like, what should I be doing here, rather than like coming in with a preconceived notion of like, this is what it's going to be happening today.
Man, I hadn't thought about that, or I don't always do that, but you're right. Anytime I tie up at the house of what I think's going to work, I usually get to the river and retie again once I get there. And it's
Yeah.
important, just like you're pulling off or putting in the river and seeing what's going on, like being part of that ecosystem, like that's the secret to fly fishing, is really capitalize on what those fish are eating. And a lot of times it can be weird stuff like terrestrials, or you just see hatches, and you get really good at identifying bugs. It seems like when you're going down in a drift boat or you pull over on the side of the river, you can just call about every bug that comes out on the river that you know. Oh, there's a little yellow Sally. Oh, look at those caddis. Look at them coming off in those bushes. Oh, they're really hitting the water. They're starting to eat them. But really paying attention to the ecosystem, flipping rocks, looking at what nymphs are crawling around down in the water. Um, Gosh, it pays huge dividends just trying to tap into that, because you just tie on that same bug that works all the time, and you go out there, and sometimes that does work. There's some proven patterns, or those fish like to eat them throughout the summer, but it just seems like they really get keyed into something, and then that's where you get those really good days, is when they're keyed into it.
Yeah. Yeah. The salmon fly hatch is tough because like they can be keyed into it one day and the bugs will be out in mass the next day, but they're so full. It's like you eat Thanksgiving dinner and someone puts a huge slice of cake and some more turkey. You're like, I'm good. Like, even though like, you probably want to eat it, it's just one day's good and one day's not. And they both get the same ideal conditions. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just fishing, right? It's so challenging, and I think that's why we still do it. If you could call it every day, or just knew when it was going to go off the hook, it wouldn't be as much fun. But yeah, you just got to pay your dues out there. And I'm with you. That's so weird when those fish get gorged on it. It's such a huge meal for them. They're so excited to eat it. When they're on it, it's every big fish in the river is looking for that bug, and you can get it so good one day, and you're trying to, like, the hatch. Salmon fly hatch, which Zach, is like, it's all dependent on water temperature. And so, in our river over here on the Madison, it starts down low and then works its way up river, and the hatch gets thick, but it really works its way up river, and it's only in, a 10-mile stretch at a time, and then it keeps moving up. And so this hatch is always moving, and so it's really tough to get your thumb on. And so you're always trying to play the hatch, and I'm looking for shucks, and I'm looking for where the bugs are, and I'm looking to get in front of it. And there's nothing more frustrating than when you finally figure out the bugs and the hatch and where they're at, and you just get into them, and there's bugs flying everywhere. And it's when it really should go off, and all of a sudden those fish are gorged or something isn't right, and those fish just don't eat that thing, and you're floating all day in salmon flies and can't get to eat. There's nothing worse than that.
It's where you throw the meat on and just start stripping streamers.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Man, I love pulling streamers. That is so fun out of the boat. I've really got into it this spring, really working the bigger, deeper holes, like pulling over and swing fishing them like I would for steelhead, or really
Yeah.
working those big deep runs that guys have a tough time getting out of a boat and really getting that bug down. But me swinging it, I can, with some T14 or even T18, I can get it to sink right down in there. Man, I picked up more fish this spring, 20 to 24 inches than I think I've ever caught, man. I'm so hooked on that streamer.
Nice. Yeah, it's addictive.
Oh, it so is. Well, and I've thrown it out of a boat a lot and hunted for big fish, but I don't think I've ever quite committed to it like I have the last couple of years of just really learning about it, learning about all the angles, really testing the bugs and finding out, which patterns I like, which colors during which conditions. And then a big part of it is just, well, I think a big part of fishing, it isn't always the bug. It's just that presentation, that way you fish it. You said it earlier, like good fishermen just catch fish, and with the streamer, it's putting in those hours of fishing that thing over and over. And a streamer can be frustrating too, because especially like if you're fishing it spring or fall or winter months, like you just don't get as many fish to eat that thing, and so you may go all day and not touch a fish, and you have to be okay with that. But the
Yeah.
ones you do touch are going to be big ones.
Yeah, or the days when it's good. I mean, man, my buddy Andrew and I had a day last summer where I bet we had 100 eats and probably caught 40, 45 fish on the streamer in a day. It was insane.
Oh, wow.
But that's like a once a year, once every 2 years type of deal. I mean, usually it's a handful of fish. I mean, I had a pretty good day this spring with a buddy on the Yellowstone. But I feel like they're kind of few and far between. But yeah, one thing for people, I guess, that don't streamer fish a lot is I would say fish white, at least part of probably every day while you're learning, just so you can like see how deep it's running and what kind of action it's imparting. Because a lot of times if you fish green or black or other colors, it can be a little tough to see your bug in the water. And if you don't know what it's doing, how are you you're fishing blindly without, any purpose, and it's just kind of blind luck that you had a fly in the water and a fish ate it. So
Yeah, so you like to really watch that streamer. There's nothing funner than watching an eat on it, but you like to watch it and how it's fishing and how it's going around rocks and its depth and looking how it's going into the water.
yeah, I mean, if whites work, and it's definitely my favorite, but some days if I'm not getting eats on other colors, if I start it out, I'll throw white on just to like fish it and make sure I'm feeling like I'm fishing it the way I want to fish it. And then, if that doesn't work, switch back to another streamer and keep fishing. But sometimes you'll be like, oh man, like that current's really pulling my streamer away. Couldn't really feel or see, where the white's so, bright, at least in clear water, that you can like pretty quickly know what it's doing and if it's feeling like it's going to be the right thing.
Man, yeah, I like that. Again, it's that feel for it. Being able to see that streamer is so advantageous to know how it's fishing. Well, and also to see eats too. Like a lot of times there's fish swatting at it that if you didn't see your bug or know where your bug is, you'd never see him. And I'm trying to, God, I miss a lot of fish off streamers, even double hooks, and I pinch
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of my barbs or whatever. But it's just like it's not even that. It's just the way they eat it sometimes. Like I started off, I went out Friday or Saturday, and went to this stream here close to my house or whatever. And the fishing was good, got 5 or 6 to eat it, landed the first couple fish, which were nice fish, and then hooked a really good one. Came out of the water once, came out of the water again, and I lost him. I was like, oh, it just crushes me, but it's like no big deal. But and then I proceeded to miss the next couple fish that came and ate it. Do you have any techniques for setting that hook on those things when they eat that streamer, or what is your percentage when you're streamer fishing?
It's pretty low. Uh, Depends on the day. I mean, man, anything above 15, 20%, I feel like is pretty dang good. At least if you're fishing it all day. Uh, I don't know. I think the biggest thing is just strip setting, and really setting that hook hard in the fish's mouth. Which obviously you need to run heavier tippet if you're going to be strip setting. But yeah, that can be tough. I mean, sometimes you got to think about the way that your rod's pointed towards your streamer, because if it's at a weird angle, you're going to want to pull your rod one way instead of kind of strip setting more straight at the fish. And I wouldn't say that it necessarily is crazy helpful, but some days it definitely is the ticket. You know, I mean, you definitely can trout set and hook fish with the streamer, but strip setting them is pretty foolproof if it's in their mouth and you have good sharp hooks that they should get hooked.
Yeah, that's good insight. I think you're right. I think it's that hard strip set when you get them to eat it, and if I can see that fish eat it, I strip that next one really hard. But it can't just be those little tiny strips or that little tiny rod tip pop or whatever. That just doesn't set the hook in those fish's face, especially with so much slack line in there. Like it may work. It seems like nymphs fish almost hook themselves, or they eat and you get a good hook set. But streamers are just different. You're right that strip set where you're pointed right at them and pull. I like that one the best, and then giving them a really hard one too. Like you can't limp wrist it when you set on those things. Like you've got to try to set those hooks in there, and like talking with guys that, well, I fished the flats for tarpon and bones and things, but talking to some of these guys that fish South America for like the Dorado and things, like they
Yeah.
take their rod and then grab the line and just swing it back as hard as they can, wham, 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 trying to set that hook in those fish's mouth. And trout are nowhere near that, but I do think you have to get a really good strip set in them. But nothing frustrates me more. I love fishing streamers so much by the fish you see and the fish that you catch, but it just crushes me to lose one like that. Like, I don't care if I lose an 18-incher, 20-incher. It's not a big deal. But when you hook onto one of those 24s and see them come out of the water, and you just want to touch and bathe with that fish just a little bit, and then to lose him, it's like, oh man. But that's just the nature of the beast. That's just the game we're playing. You miss a lot of fish on salmon flies too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of sloppy eats when they've seen the bug for a while. And it pushes out of their mouth. I mean, smaller fish are obviously not going to be able to eat a streamer as well, and sometimes it's just a territorial swipe. Other times they're trying to eat it. You know, there's different kinds of eats, and um, I feel like once I hook them, I don't lose very many. I don't play with them too much. You know what I mean? I'm keeping it really tight and cranking them in. You know, I don't care if, most of the streamer fish I catch are going to have a lot of spunk when they hit the net. Definitely not the guy to let them to play around with them. Like as soon as they're hooked, you're coming in towards me like so.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
If they're a big fish, I mean, they're obviously going to fight you, and if they're jumping, you need to give them, that little bit of a give. But yeah, I mean, most of the fish that you're probably going to catch on the streamer, you should be able to net fairly quickly, unless there's some weird current or they're, really giving it their all. So.
Well, and it's a little bit different from shore from a boat. From a boat, you're kind of floating down with them and can kind of suck in on that line and get them to the net pretty quick. Where in the bank, they kind of know that you're pulling them in. Like they get close to that bank and they start getting pretty spunky. At least for me, it's been tougher to get them to the net when fishing from shore than from a boat. But I'm with you.
Yeah,
I don't play around with them much either.
no. I mean, yeah. If
Some of
you
those
want to
big
play with
browns
fish,
can just be. Sorry, go ahead,
go
Zach.
fish. Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want to play with them and feel them fight, then go dry fly fish on 5X and have a good old time.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't fish very light tippet ever. Like sometimes I'll go to 3X, 4X if I need to on a dry fly with a longer leader, but gosh, I use a heavier tippet and it just doesn't seem to matter to those fish, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it depends on the fishing, but people I think can usually go thicker than they think they can.
Yeah. Well, and then I hear
I mean,
guys that say you won't catch much unless you use 5X, 6X, 7X. I just haven't run into that. Usually, if I can't get a fish to bite, like I'll extend my leader, like get it farther away from my fly line or longer of that that thinner tippet or whatever, and seems to be the trick for me. But to each their own. I don't like using that light stuff. It just seems like it gets nicked so easy, and you break fish so easy, and sometimes maybe a spring creek or a lake or something you got to go really light tippet. But for the most part, 4X is about as light as you see me go.
Yeah, if I can't catch them on 5X, then I don't want to catch them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, man, we got to get out on the river. We're so close now that we've met. You got to come down to the Madison and jump in the boat.
I know. We'll have to stay in touch. I want to fish soon. I just I've been kind of set on trying to bear hunt this year, and I haven't shot one yet, so I'm kind of a little bit torn between the two. But we definitely should get out. Definitely, June's one of my favorite months to fish, at least if the water's in shape.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's going to be in good shape this year. Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough when you're an all-around sportsman. Definitely hunting season. I don't fish as much as I would like to in the fall. There's such big fish and such great opportunity, but I'm hunting so much of the time. And same thing in the spring. I fish really hard, leading up to good bear season, and then once it's good bear season, I'm usually out looking for one of those, and as soon as I can get a bear down, then I'm trying to make it back to the river. And sure has been good here, the last couple weeks or last month. Of course, work's heated up too. Have to get some work done, but sure is a good time of year to be out. I can't wait for June and July where a guy can really focus on it. And last year, the hoppers were so insane down here. It was like a 1 in 10 year hopper hatch. They just ate dry flies, big dry flies, all summer long. It was so fun.
Nice.
Yeah. So get out my kids, get out my dad, get out with buddies, and go have a little fun. But yeah, good luck for that bear. I know you've been hitting it hard. Sounds like you got that rifle all doped in again. You're ready to get after him. So, man, good hunting out there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of bouncing around, trying some new country. Not, super desperate. If I was, I'd be going back to the old tried and true spots, but I just kind of want to get out and see a little bit of new country. And if it happens, it happens. If not, oh well. I might even fish a little bit in the mornings, because you definitely can kill a bear in the morning, but it's obviously better in the evenings, especially when it starts getting hotter and hotter.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, and I just wear myself out if I go early like that. I spend those good part of the day on the vantage point kind of wasting time. And you're right, that afternoon, evening, you just count on it for bears. So leaves in some good time for fishing in the morning. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
right on. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you be Gage. I'll probably hit you up and ask you where the salmon fly hatch is at.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
always
I'm right here on the river, and
a
I'll be
piece
fishing it. So yeah, reach out to me, and we can talk over the hatch. And if you get a free day, let's get out and go throw that thing.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Zach. I really appreciate it, man. It was a great conversation. I loved having you on the podcast. I'll have to hit you up to come on the hunting one here down the road.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks for having me on today, Brian.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Yeah, fun conversation with Zach. Make sure to go check out his Montana Wild. Check out Zach Boughton, and then check out the Hunting Collective, his photography school he's got going with Steve Drake, who I've also had on the Eastman's Elevated podcast. So just a great guy. Really enjoyed the conversation. And I really enjoy his films. That new Outlier film, that bloopers film, is hilarious. But the new Outliers, I got to go check out. I've seen the trailer for it. I got to go watch the whole film, see if it's out yet. But he's starting to work pretty hard to produce some of this content that he's been sitting on. So like all of us, he's super busy, works a full-time job as well as putting out these videos and stuff. So I really appreciate his time here on the podcast and sharing his knowledge about fly fishing. And with that, make sure to check out everything we got going on over at Eastman's. Check out Eastman's Elevated, our hunting-specific podcast, the magazines we have, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, Eastman's Hunting Journal, and then just trying to do more on the fishing side. I think we're going to come up with a blog or someplace where we can do some writing to create some more content there. And then just keep working really hard on this podcast to get you guys the best information to be successful. So we're the heart of summer right now. fishing's really good. Man, that salmon fly hatch was sure fun to chase and got some good fish off of it. So, yeah, just now trying to figure out where I want to fish for the rest of the summer and what I want to fish with. So, going to pull a lot of streamers. There's a couple new smaller systems I want to go fish that I've never been on, so I'm going to go explore those. And yeah, streamers are getting really good here on the Madison, so I got to drift down and throw some streamers and see if I can find a couple of those next level fish. I saw my electrician yesterday, and he had been fishing the last couple nights. He got a good one on white a night ago or so. So I got to go throw some streamers and then look towards this hopper hatch. It's going to be fun. So, yeah, going to finish this summer out strong and see if I can turn up a couple more good fish. But I sure am enjoying doing this podcast. So thanks you guys for all the support, the shares, the downloads of the podcast or subscribing to it really helps. And then the reviews really help in sharing it on social media. So I appreciate it. It's tough in today's day and age to get a podcast off the ground, but you guys are doing it with the numbers and things. So hopefully we can just keep this thing rolling and bring you guys that next level content that you guys enjoy and make a podcast out of this thing. So I appreciate it, guys. That's it for this week. I'll check in with you guys next week.